just wanted to show you a short film that we actually made in Futerra about 7 years ago, which was trying to kind of bring the issue of climate change to life. And we actually used Shakespeare.
Ill met by moonlight, proud Titania.
These are the forgeries of jealousy. Never since the middle summer spring met we on hill in dale, field or mead, by paved fountain or by rushy brook, or in the margin of the sea, to dance our ringlets to the whistling wind. But by thy brawls thou hast disturbed our sport.
There is speech in their dumbness, language in their very gesture. They look as they have heard of a world ransomed or one destroyed.
Tarry, rash wanton. Am not I thy lord?
Therefore the winds, piping to us in vain, as in revenge, have sucked up from the sea contagious fogs, which falling in the land hath every pelting river made so proud that they have overborne their continents. The ox hath therefore stretched his yoke in vain, the ploughman lost his sweat, and the green corn hath rotted ere his youth attained a beard. The fold stands empty in the drowned field. The crows are fatted with the murrain flock. The nine men's morris is filled up with mud, and the quaint mazes in the wanton green, for lack of tread, are indistinguishable. I would my father look but with my eyes. He is their parent and original.
Rather, your eyes must with his judgment look.
The human mortals want their winter cheer.
No night is now with him or Carol blessed.
Therefore the moon, the governess of floods, pale in her anger, washes all the air, that rheumatic diseases do abound. And thorough this distemperature, we see the seasons alter. Hoary-headed frosts fall in the fresh lap of the crimson rose, and on old Himes thin and icy crown, an odorous chaplet of sweet summer buds is as in mockery set.
The spring, the summer, chiding autumn, angry winter, change their wonted liveries. And the mazed world, by their increase, now knows not which is which. And this same progeny of evils comes from our debate, from our dissension. We are their parents and original.
Do you amend it then? It lies in you.
No. We are their parents and original.
Yeah, and actually the reason it's interesting to watch is we actually managed to cast Keira Knightley in it before she was famous. So we kind of got a bit of a coup there, and as a consequence it gets massive amounts of hits on YouTube, which is fantastic. Of course, she's never spoken to us again before she became famous. So there's pros and cons. And so the other kind of classic film that we've also seen raising awareness to this was Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth. And I think this did more than anything, if you like, to put this firmly on the political agenda, because there was a populist angle to this. about really explaining the complexity of the science. And there's going to be another big film coming out in mid-March this year. It gets its world premiere probably around the 15th of March. It's called Age of Stupid. And this is, if you like, another kind of cultural take on the mindlessness of our age, about how we continually manage to sleepwalk into the darkness, even though we should be clearly aware of the problem we've created and the challenges we face. Of course, the art world hasn't been disengaged from this either. Damien Hirst, the original commodifier of art, did a piece a few years ago which was supposed to represent in huge gas cylinders the amount of carbon dioxide he emitted in one particular year. Unfortunately, this was actually typical of Hirst. He probably couldn't sell it, so he didn't actually make the piece. It remained just as a concept. But it garnered a bit of publicity and showed that the mainstream art world was at least interested in this challenge of climate change. And then there's the work, again, that Simon touched on, the work of the Cape Farewell expedition, which has been going up into the Arctic Circle for the last 4 or 5 years. And the idea behind this is that they are able to sail through waters that were previously icebound. And they take a whole different diverse group of writers, photographers, artists, and musicians. And on this year's expedition, for example, they have people like Jarvis Cocker going up there. And it's really a bit of a slow burner, because the idea is that the artists go up there and they experience the Arctic and they get a feel for what it's like. They can hear the noise of the ice cracking. They get an emotional connection with this landscape, which, you know, it's quite hard to envisage unless you've actually experienced it firsthand. And the idea is that ultimately they will start to incorporate this in their work. And it's taken a while. Ian McEwan, for example, went a couple of years ago, and he's finally started writing about climate change now. The seed was planted in his mind, and he's finally starting to become creative with it. I think my only criticism of Cape Farewell is that sometimes it feels a little bit school project-y. And I think that kind of the things that were done instantly aren't actually particularly groundbreaking. For example, they took Anthony Gormley up there, and can anyone guess what Anthony Gormley did when he went to the Arctic?
Cast his body.
He made a snowman, exactly. He made a cast of his body. I mean, we kind of probably would have guessed that Anthony Gormley would have done that. And for me, actually, far more provocative are images such as this, which was actually taken by a friend of mine, a guy called Nick Cobbing. And he's a photographer for Greenpeace. And what this is a photograph of the surface of the Greenland ice sheet. Now, I don't know about you, but when you envisage a Greenland ice sheet, you have no idea what it actually looks like. You know it's probably white. You know it's probably a bit icy. But this is a melt lake. Now, what happens with these melt lakes is during the summer season now is that these are far more frequent and far larger. And the reason they're so worrying is because you can see these fissures in the ice coming out from the melt lake. What happens is the water starts to percolate down through the ice sheet and actually lubricates the sliding of the ice sheet off the rock below. So the thinking goes, and the theory goes, that as these melt lakes become more frequent and much larger, there's more percolation of water through, and so the ice sheet is going to slide off the landmass quicker than it would have otherwise have done. So these, if you like, are another canary in the coal mine type of alarm system for what's actually happening on top of the Greenland ice sheet. And as Simon said, you know, if we lose that, we get a 13-metre rise in global sea level.